So I've been getting a bunch of comments saying that the adaptability aspect and a bunch of passives are bugged lately. I've obviously addressed all of this in my previous bash videos, but seeing as no one wants to watch my piece of shit videos, I decided to make a separate one. Seeing as it takes about 3 brain cells and about 5 minutes of effort, see what of these things actually work, I think we should be fine in debunking these things. So let's head straight into the Kyovashad sex chambers and rip James Voorhees a new one. And in case you're wondering why my damage is shit, that's because my paragons are thorns. Spoiler for my next build. Alright, so this is what I've been hearing when it comes to bash and the bash bleed setup. Adaptability is bugged, and you do more damage when it's on a ring instead of having it on an amulet. Moonrise is bugged. Berserk ripping doesn't work as intended. Edging Master is bugged. Wallop is bugged. The optimal crit to vuln ratio is 10 to 1, 15 to 2, 69 to 69, etc. The two-handed sword mastery is bugged. Let's check them out one by one. So, to the left is adaptability on the ring, and on the right is adaptability on the amulet without swapping out any other damage aspects. It may be difficult to view just from this which one deals the more damage, but at least it's obvious you don't deal more damage when it's on the ring. I recorded 100 hits each, and the difference in damage was on average 27% higher with adaptability on the amulet. Seeing as it should be around 33% higher, things seem to be working just fine. And if we're only checking the biggest damn outliers, then the highest hits with it on the amulet was 15 mil, and without it 12 mil. Okay, so what about the bleed then? If we do the same test, but with Berserk ripping? Well, this is even easier. Just check how high we can get the bleeds really, and check if there's any difference. Again, left is with adaptability on the ring, and right one on the amulet. That's strange. The bleed ticks seem to be roughly the same. Must be a bug, right? Well, a quick look at the Berserk ripping aspects show that it's working exactly as intended. And why is that? Because it's only scaling via the base damage, obviously. Now you're probably like, and what the hell is that, Mr. Pergaming? Let's bring up the dummy guide to how damage works from the max roll team. The base damage is your weapon damage times whatever percentage your skill is showing. This number right here. Now the weapon damage is annoying as hell, seeing as it has a span of numbers and revolves around RNG, but it doesn't really matter. What we care about is the base damage here. So now you know what base damage is, but if this was all we had for our bleeds, they wouldn't do jack shit. So where the hell does all the damage come from? Well, when your bleed-based damage has been calculated, we can scale it to the fucking moon via all the multipliers that scale with bleed. Gushing Wounds is one of these multipliers and is the reason that bleeds are so insanely broken this season. All general multipliers also increase bleed damage, such as vulnerable damage, inner calm aspect, the conceited aspect, and so forth. Adaptability, on the other hand, obviously doesn't increase the bleed damage, as it only increases the damage of your basic skills. The same goes for the Moonrise aspect, along with the Edging Master and Wallop, for example. If it says that a skill damage increases, then it doesn't work with the bleed from Berserk ripping. But Mr. Pergaming Big Dick Senpai, this sounds all wrong and annoying to keep track of. Can't we just make it deal 60% of the regular damage instead? Well, my man, let's say you can dish out 300 million DPS with a regular bash build. And let's say that you dealt 60% of that flat as bleed, and then scaled the bleeds 5,000% via gushing wounds and hemorrhage. You tell me what you think would happen. Did anyone say D 3 numbers? So, in short, if you care about how much your DPS is, then you keep using the adaptability aspect along with Moonrise. If all you care about is big bleed ticks, then you throw them in the trash and use inner calm, the conceited aspect and elements instead, for example. But seeing as all of these aspects are shit, I wouldn't recommend it. Alright. And what about the optimal crit to vuln ratio? Okay, so there are 2 things you need to consider here. First, Crit damage does not increase your bleeds, meaning that all of the additive crit damage that you're stacking up will not help you at all when it comes to how big your bleeds will be. It does, however, increase your gushing wounds indirectly. On the other hand, vulnerable damage does increase your bleeds both directly in the calculation and via the hemorrhage legendary node. This is where it differs between your builds, however. For example, as I said earlier, when you're playing Bash, you need to care about your DPS, and this depends both on your bleeds and on your normal hits. But if you're playing Flay, then all that matters is how much your bleed damage is. This makes crit damage more valuable for a Bash Barb than a Flay enjoyer. To make things even worse, though, your regular Bash damage also depends on your crit chance. The less crit chance you have, the less crit damage you'll do. Oh, and it also depends on if you're running one-handed or two-handed, seeing as you can get completely different crit values if you're able to run the heavy-handed passive. This also makes two-handed bash better than dual-wielding when you have sick fucking gear with a bunch of heavy-handed ranks, but worse when your gear is weaker since you can utilize more passives and get more cooldown resets when dual-wielding. So, if we want to optimize our bash DPS, then we need to consider both the bleed and the regular bash damage. This is annoying as fuck, where I've basically thrown in all additive damage in one bucket to make it simple. And now I'm going to ask you a question, my beautiful viewer. Do you really give enough of a shit to do this just for running some pit runs? Nah, so go with a ratio of 1 to 5, 1 to 10, or 1 to 15. It doesn't fucking matter. And I've been doing the same damage with all of the different ratios. The only thing that really matters is that you want as much as possible of all these stats. Okay, so next up is the two-handed mastery. I've heard everything possible about this piece of shit weapon expertise, and it truly is a piece of shit because this thing is actually weird as hell, and that goes for both parts of the passive. Let's check them out one by one. So, 20% of my direct damage is turned into bleed damage, huh? Does it work with the Dust Devils? Nope. This makes somewhat of a sense, I guess, seeing as it deals damage over time. But at the same time, it is able to crit, so it should be direct damage. A weird one. Does it work with Tyrael's might then? Nope. This must be a bug, right? Yeah, I think so. It doesn't seem to work with anything that isn't directly using a weapon, seeing as Steel Grasp and Kick doesn't work either. The second part then, the bleed damage increase. This does seem to work actually, but only if you actually get a killing blow with the two-handed sword in itself. So if you're playing my dual-wield bash Rupture build, for example, if you get a killing blow with Rupture, then you get the bonus. But if you get a killing blow with a Dust Devil, for example, then it doesn't work, not even if you're using the two-handed sword as you're spinning. So the direct damage simply needs to come directly from the two-handed weapon, or else it doesn't work. This makes this passive shit for all bash builds that are not using Rupture basically. And for the spin-to-win builds along with Flay, this means that Polearm is the strongest since it grants you a flat 15% Big Dam increase. Much stronger than the Big Daddy Hammer, for example. Alright, that's all for me. See you in the next one, Kings.